Order. There's no room for the hammer. So. All right. We'll recognize that tonight's meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Sunama people. Before we begin officially onto the agenda items, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our new Executive Director of HR, Ms. Carrie McVeigh. We are very happy to have you. And now we'll move on to additions. Trustee Solomon, I believe you have something.
Just a quick one, it's called drug awareness.
Okay, so we'll put that under 9.1, new business, drug awareness. Any deletions? None, seeing none.
Any deletions, where we go?
We'd be going home. No changes in order, I assume. Nope. Any objections to approving the agenda? The addition? No? Okay, the agenda is approved. Any changes or objections to approving the minutes? Seeing none, we'll move to the minutes. And we will move on to learning services, and Superintendent Blaine has a few things he wants to talk to us about before the presentation.
Through the chair. First off, I would like to ask Mr. Saywell.
Oh, yeah.
He has a very nice thing to announce here.
Well, we thought we'd take this opportunity to announce that we received this Premier's Award for promoting innovation and excellence for our after-school sport and art initiative. So we've been doing this program for 5 years now. It's a grant that we have received for 5 years. This year it was worth around $80,000. And we're in 15 schools presently. It's a program for vulnerable kids. And we were recognized by the Premier.
Awesome.
So that's great news.
That is
Excellent.
excellent news.
Well done, everybody. On that note, Ms. Jackie Poole is responsible for comprehensive schools, and she has overseen that. And also Drew Cooper, our partnership with Pacific Sport is also. And wondering if the board or the board chair may wish to.
I move that the Education Committee recommend that the board write and congratulate the leaders of the after-school sports program and congratulate them on their previous notice.
Second. Anyone want to speak to this?
Well done. Ms. Poolin's been involved in sports and athletics for a long time in this district. She's the health amunga. She has been one of her, not just her, but she's been active in that. So
Yeah, she's outstanding job with that. Our swim program fits under that. Our symphony program fits under all that now too. Comprehensive schools, it's great.
Sorry, Trustee.
sorry.
Elizabeth.
Would Kids for Kids be part of that as well? Do you know anything about Kids for Kids?
It's not.
It's not.
This is a separate.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah. Should we just vote on that before we go on, or is
Oh,
this
sorry.
about this?
No.
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Unanimous. So moving on.
I just wanted to report back to the board on one other update, and the board was informed about English 115, a course that we developed at Dover Bay in the evenings in partnership with VIU, and just to let the board know that we had 44 applicants for that, for 30 seats. And two of them are actually, we have some two international students there, which are fee-paying extra for that. And we have a good cross-section. We do have 22 students from Dover Bay, one from Learn at Home, one from Woodlands, one from out of district that we receive funding for, 3 from NDSS and 2 from Barsby. And all the students that applied on time did get accepted in, and those that were late, we went through a process to look accept them or not. So we're very pleased with the full applicant to that. And that was.
As long as you don't have to read Middlemarch.
Hmm?
As long as one does not have to read Middlemarch.
So I would now like to introduce Ms. Marcy Boudreau and Justin Green, Katrina Young, and Alana Cameron. I believe they have a presentation on assessment. And Tim Divvy is going to start.
Education and Superintendent. Just briefly, I just wanted to introduce the full committee of the District Assessment Review Committee. Some of the members are here this evening, and as was mentioned, some of these members will be here this evening. So with myself, Justin Green, and Marcy Bedreau, we chair this committee. It's been a fantastic group to work with this year, and I'm sure you'll find the update very refreshing and rewarding in terms of the work that's being done by this committee. So, as noted, Marcy Bedreau, coordinator for the K-3 assessment. Justin Green, coordinator for the 4-9 assessment. Nick Fortan is not here this evening with us, but he's the coordinator for prevention work programs as well. Joe Cornthwaite, teacher, is a member of the committee. Jennifer Robinson, who's here, is one of our teachers on the committee. Thank you for being here. Lynn Brown is also a teacher at the secondary level and part of the committee. In terms of our administrators, and again, obviously, partnership here, in working with administrators, coordinators, parents, and district staff on this committee here. So we have Shona Stetton, who's here this evening. And thank you, Shona, from Woodbank Elementary, soon to be principal of Cedar Elementary. Darlene Crane, the principal at Bracken Elementary. Brina Young is here, and thank you, Brina. Principal at Falling Air French Immersion Programs. Teresa Craker, vice principal at Dover Bay. Alana Cameron here, and thank you, Alana, for being here. Parent and DPAC rep on the committee, and Shino. Elliot, parent and DPAC rep as well. So thank you to our group for being here and being supportive of the presentation. And I'll turn this over to Marcy. Thank you.
Yeah, and do I talk into this mic? Can you? Yes? Yep, good. Don't
You
tell
don't
okay.
have to if you don't want to. You just have to project yourself.
Pretend that you're all my grade 1 students.
Yes.
Okay. So
I'll take his notes.
thank you. It's nice to have a slide person. So I teach grade 1 in the district 3 days a week at Uplands Park Elementary. And then the other 2 days, I've been fortunate enough to be one of the assessment coordinators with Justin. And I also sit on the committee and co-chair. So the theme here is collaboration, and we have it up here. The team itself, all the stakeholders in collaborating. Not only when we sit at the committee and what we talk about, but also out in the field. And so I'm going to talk to a few successful things that are happening that Justin and I have been involved with, but admin are part of it. You know, parents, teachers, that, you know, all together we're working on it collaboratively. So, teacher teams. We talked about the tool in the previous year. The tool went out to teachers in the fall, and they used it. And then we brought teachers back, talked to us about the tool, the feedback they were getting from the way they used it to what the information was telling them about their learners. And so you can see 24 schools, even though we have 30 in total at the elementary level. Some are intermediate, some are primary, some are French immersion. So we've just broken it down that 20 out of the 24 schools were represented by a teacher from K to 3, and then 22 out of the 24 were represented from 4 to 7. So we're focusing on reading, we're focusing on formative assessment, and we're talking about where students are at and where they need to go. So this is pretty powerful stuff. This feedback, Justin and I have taken along with the rest of the team. We're using this to obviously edit it against the tool and talk to the committee about it. Okay. So much power. PLCs. This has been a great opportunity that the district has actually made happen for teachers and staff at schools. And the tool in the beginning, once it was administered, the data was brought to PLCs to talk about where the learners are at from kindergarten all the way to grade 7. There was glitches with certain things, and so it created this really kind of messy conversation, but a conversation nonetheless about student learning and students at the center. and also about maybe moving forward, planning units to gather teachers, staff, administrators about how to move the learning forward and meet week after week in the PLCs. And what's happened, a great thing that's happened is that because, you know, 3 of the core foundations of our district is, one of them is assessment, we're filtering this down into everyone with providing professional development. So this Pro D coming up for teachers on the 22nd, we're having Damien Cooper, who's Canadian, and he's quite the guru in formative assessment and what that looks like. And he's also going to be doing even more on the 23rd with some elementary teachers and secondary teachers, and we're hoping that we can work with him, not just Justin and myself, but a team within the next year to talk about assessment. Okay. And also, we've committed, Justin, myself, and a group of us, to focus on helping teachers come to after-school sessions, which we're calling Learning Series, about not just reading, but about instruction, moving your practice forward. And we've had lots of people already sign up, and they're just over the next 3 months. And now I think I'm good. Are there any questions about what we just talked about that I may answer? Because I'm going to leave, I'm sorry, I apologize up front, but my grade 1s are doing a performance and they're on at 6:30 at the school. So that was my part. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe. Okay, so a couple of things I wanted to talk to you about. First off, the fact that Marcy and I get to work together is a tremendous thing from my perspective anyways. I can't tell you how much fun we actually have working together on these Mondays and Tuesdays. In fact, it's the kind of thing in the annex where people start closing doors because we're just being very loud and really enjoying each other's company and driving this forward. And I honestly think the more fun you're having, the better job you're kind of doing in a lot of sense. What I want to talk to you about are a couple of things from my perspective, just on the feedback and that cycle. What did we do from the field to really start developing this reading assessment tool? So I'll talk about the survey, what went out, how we then use that to develop the tool itself, and then where the implementation schedule, where we're kind of moving forward with this, just around reading for now. So the survey, the questions went out to the field to elicit feedback, and that was last fall. So we sent out all online. Here it is. We have it open. Actually, I think we even had to extend it for a while just because of a number of things happening within the district. But we gave teachers ample opportunity to provide us with some feedback. And so when we got that back, it did come back in lovely sort of numerical, anecdotal. You can see all of this kind of information coming back from the field, which is great. But we needed to do something with that, of course. And so a couple things, just the participation. You can see for K we had 34 separate responses, grade 1, 35. You can see the numbers up there. So you can see there was a great deal of participation from across the field. Now one thing to realize with these numbers is some teachers are teaching grade 4, 5. So they're going to be like grade 4, they would register as 1 for grade 4 and 1 for grade 5. So keep that in account. Also SSTs, we asked them, well, what do you primarily work with? Well, if they're primary, they're going to put K 1, 2, 3. Like so the numbers aren't quite as, they're bloated in a lot of sense. So, but realize that we did get a fair amount of feedback from the field. So then we used this. We brought our teacher teams from across the district. And like Marcy said, we had 20 of 24 primary schools, so not French immersion or learn at home, but those primary schools. 20 of 24 schools come back and be a part of a teacher team. So 20 participants, K to 3. Let's bring them together, focus in on the assessment at the grade 1 level, grade 2 level, grade 3 level. Ks are coming up. Ks are special, and I might be able to explain that in a few minutes. The 4 to 7s, we had 22 of 24 schools coming in and participating on the teacher teams. One of those schools, unfortunately, had a sickness go through it, so they just weren't able to come. And they actually had 3 members ready to come and participate with us. So they then looked at all that feedback, that form I showed you, and they had to try to make their way through it, but also bringing back feedback from their own schools. Well, what were their staffs talking about? And then they made recommendations on changes to those tools, to the tool itself.
look at the passages. Do we need to make some changes around it? And some of them, we did make some significant changes in the 4 to 7. Do the critical skills that we want to assess, are those still valid? Do we want to continue? Yes, we do. But the questions we were asking didn't necessarily get the answers we wanted. So we had to make some adjustments, right? That's part of actually, honestly, I think the beauty of this whole process is that people are engaged in developing a really solid tool, but at the same time, they're learning about reading and formative assessment. So it's kind of a double dip in some ways. Now about the implementation. So we're in year 2 of the development of this homegrown common formative assessment. And we're really hoping, like last year I had this term for our reading assessment, the drafty draft, meaning like it was pretty raw. We had stories come together, we tried to get some questions, and we went out to the field and like try it, play with it, see what you think. This year we're kind of at that drafty draft stage. We're still making some edits, and sometimes some significant ones, but we're really moving forward. So we're hoping by May that we'll be able to put into teachers' hands a good solid draft, like something that might need a few tweaks here and there, maybe a comma or something like that, but not anything significant. And then by September, we're off and running. Teachers are trying it, using it, seeing how this informs their practice. Okay? At this point, and I don't have a solid number for you to say the participation rates, but I would hazard a guess at around that sort of 70% mark of teachers across the district really engaging in this. We want 100%, but we need a really good tool to get to the 100% and show that this really does improve student learning. This helps drive your instruction. So that's our goal. We will work and endeavor to get there. It's just going to take us a little bit more time to do that. Okay. Now, I did bring, just as a visual for you, so, like, this is what teachers get, right? This is the grade 6 and 7. It has all the information, just to show you the kind of work and effort that goes into these things. And I'm happy to put these on the table so you can pass them around. The passages that are in there, you can see what they look like as well, just to get a sense. But it's more for you just to get a hands-on kind of feel of that. So can I just start right here? Just have a quick look and see. So often it's better if I'm talking reading assessment, you're like, oh, that's really nice. When you actually see it, you get a sense of what we're trying to do. Now, I don't have the K to 3. The K to 3, teachers are using them. And it's really, we don't have extra copies. Teachers are really into the K, and especially right now with the Ks. The Ks had to wait until that January kind of time. Kids are just starting school. You can't expect to do a reading assessment on them day 1, right? We need to give them time to get used to school and what does this even look like, start learning our letter names. So they're getting into that process right now of starting to do the assessments for the Ks. Okay. Any questions on that? Yes.
So you talked about developing the tool, and you talked about coming together with teachers about assessing critical skills. And I'm wondering how you decided what skills you were assessing, and do they line up with the competencies that are expected under the new curriculum, or?
Oh, the new curriculum is also a nice fun thing to work. This is based on teacher experience. So we brought teachers from across the district to say, what do you want to assess? What do we believe kids need to know, K to 3, around learning to read, and 4 to 7, or even 4 to 9, reading to learn? What are those skills that kids need, especially around comprehension in the higher levels? What do they need to be able to demonstrate so we know where to go with them? And they identified 5 key areas. Yeah, I can tell you what they are if you like, but it was from across the professionals from across the district coming together saying, we need to know this in order to drive our instruction. So it wasn't Marcy or I saying, these were what they are.
So through like a collaborative effort, you came up with 5 that everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, 22 at the K to 3 level, individual skills.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're off to our next part. Do you want me to click or you?
If you're okay with clicking, that would be great. I'm not going to worry about that. So I was asked to talk a little bit about where we were, and I think what's really interesting to look at is there's one example that was probably key in the entire process, where in the beginning we were basically being asked to vote between different assessment tools that were out in the public domain. And at the primary level, it was already pretty clear that they really liked the idea of having a local document that they could tweak, that teachers could get involved with and be active participants. what happened then, we went through that, and that took quite a bit of time. And then the intermediate teachers were supposed to vote between either doing the DART or doing the RAD. And it was just, we had all this feedback back from teachers across the district saying, not really that one, not really that one either. And it was really interesting because we were getting, there's always timelines, and you say, no, we've got to draw this meeting to a close and we have to finish. And all of a sudden, I put up my hand and said, I'm sorry, we've had this great rich conversation about primary. Now we need to have that same conversation about intermediate. Why are we looking at choosing between two that we don't really enjoy or don't really think meet our needs? We need to go back to the drawing table. Poor Darlene Crane, at the time, she was looking at developing a primary tool, and suddenly her workload just exploded in front of her. But that explosion was worth it. And so that's why I start with where we were, because it's the where we were that really, we were politicking, we were tiptoeing around, we were trying to say, how do administrators and district staff and teachers work together on this? And there was a whole bunch of resistance around assessment. And I can really say where we are right now is completely different. And I think Alana said it very well. She said, is this the same committee? And it really feels that way, even when we're talking in our PLC meetings. It's not the same. Those conversations are rich and deep about learning. And as the French immersion administrator, I know that I had to work really hard on the sidelines because this was proceeding in English, and we were going, well, it's going to have to happen in French too, so we better start. And the discussions were hot and heavy between immersion teachers saying, well, we're not the same as in English. We're not looking for the same skills. How are we going to make sure that the tool reflects our needs? And we were looking at data across Canada, and the Literacy Network has some great information. But there were some very skilled teachers here who were going, no, this is wrong. There's something wrong with this tool. And it's been back and forth and through feedback processes, but it's the richness of that process that has really moved the discussion forward. So teachers are feeling like it's okay to step up and say, I have a problem with this. And it's okay to argue amongst each other and really hash it out and take a look at the data. And it's interesting because we've had teachers who have for years have used benchmarking, and they think that's the be all and end all, and there's a number and they can tell you what level the kids are reading at. But when we say, well, so what does that tell you if they're reading at a level 2 or at level 16? What do you really know about their reading? And it's that conversation that is now changing, where they're starting to go, oh, right, no, I can't tell you enough because that number is not really the information that we're looking at. So where to next? There's still going to be conversations. There's still going to be feedback. There is still going to be looking at the data. And I think we're at a stage now, at least I can speak in my own school, where we're looking at, okay, we have this assessment tool for everyone. Is there a way of streamlining it? Is there a way of going more quickly through those students that they could read a paragraph, they could tell you right now all the information about it, they're done. And then there are others who are really going to struggle. So how do we streamline that process for all of our students? Obviously, the next piece is, okay, what about math? What about writing? We have one assessment tool, and we're a little bit overloaded and feeling, okay, we're doing well, but we also have these other areas. And Stephanie, you mentioned the new curriculum. We can't do the new curriculum without really thinking about competencies. What does that mean? Where's the assessment going? And the assessment process will have to change if we're going to look at how that meshes with our new curriculum. So the assessment committee might think that we're doing a really good job, we're done. We're not. So, thank you. And Alana.
So I'm the parent on this lovely group, and I started with this group when it first started 3 years ago. And the first time I sat at the table, I was like, what am I doing here? Like, oh my, and they're teaching me about the is, as, of reading, and I'm, oh, lordy. And I'm like, and then I started asking questions, and they were like, oh, we never thought of that. That's really good. But I come from it because I'm a parent, and I want that instant answer. I want to come to you, and I want to ask you a question, where's my kid? And they're like, we can't just answer that. There's all these things that we need to be able to dissect and tell you about your child. So when I used to go back to DPAC, I used to say, I love this committee. And Jeanette was on it with me at the time, and it was like, this is the committee, and I said this to Justin yesterday, where it was a group of professionals sitting around a table, and they let me and Jeanette sit there, and it was like, yay! And everybody checked themselves at the door. And everybody that sat at that table was there for the right reason. We all wanted what was best for the kids, and it was like, when we were arguing and we were fighting, we were getting somewhere, and we were getting the job done. Anything else I should-
I think that was awesome.
Any questions for me?
No tissue damage.
Was it easy?
I'll just take a second just to thank the committee members, Justin and Alana, Karina and Marcy for speaking with you today, but also for all of the members here supporting the presentation today. And I just want to acknowledge the absolute journey that this committee has been on over the last several years. I'm lucky enough to sort of step into it with Tim at this point, to have her predecessor Robin Gray, to, as Alana describes, this amazing group of people that is moving this important learning forward. So, thank you. Thank you. Do you have a question for any of the members?
I have another question about there was a mention of the database.
Yeah.
And the database was, when we sat here a year ago, database
Sorry, I
was
have to prepare myself.
it was a
mentally for
tricky,
this.
it was a stumbling block, the database. What was gonna be in it, what was gonna look like, who's gonna have access to, there's so many questions. So where are we with the database? Are
What
we
can
in a
I
better
really
place?
say? It does, okay, we want to, I can collect data and highlight and find out where my class is. I can do that personally. I know how to use a highlighter and put my numbers together and look at stuff. We're not maybe all at that point, but I'd say the vast majority of educators can look at some data and figure out their class. We want a database that takes it one step further, where it can collect information from, I want to know how my Aboriginal students are doing, boys, grade 4, 5, print me a report, let's see how they're doing. That to me is an extra step of synthesis that would take me a long time to do, to grab the kids and try to figure out where they all are. I want a database that does that. It's not there. It's doing right now what I can do. Okay, which is good. Like, that's nice. It prints, and honestly, when it prints out, we were at a school yesterday. When did we go to that school? Monday. Went to a school Monday. Can't remember the days. And we sat down with their data and looked at it, like vertically, horizontally. What do you think? What are you seeing? And the whole staff just went, oh, great. Okay, now I can see how this works. That's where we want to get it to. We just want a database that's really functional, that does that extra step that I would normally do, that would take me much longer to do. I don't know how to say the next part. We may explore other options, which is really a polite way of saying, I think we're at a frustration point where we're investing an awful lot of time and honestly money into something that is taking an awful long time. We want something in September when we have that binder finally edited and in people's hands and it's the draft, but it's really good. I want a database that does the same thing. Sorry, I'm speaking personally now. That's a really bad thing. But I think we want something that matches what that tool is. Is that about right? Okay.
Superintendent Blaine has something to add.
Yeah, and thank you, Justin, for that. So two pieces about the database is the piece around the usability and what the teachers are now able, and we're to work with it through PLCs and et cetera, with the information. And we've made light years in that regard. To the point now where they're saying we need more, and the system that we have, so the other part to the equation is the usability's there and we're doing it. The technical piece of we don't think this is the right tool to hold our data, because they're asking for more ability to create different analyses and et cetera for that, which is great for them to be coming back to us now, and our challenge is to go out, find one that does what we want and one that'll take our data, because we didn't even have the data before.
One of the other big pieces, if a student moves,
Yeah.
we want that to be a seamless transition to the next place.
So we talked just the other day, and that's what we're embarking on now,
Yeah.
is to look for new ideas around the tool itself.
So can I have a follow-up then on this?
No.
Well, I'm going to. the icky part of the data, which was a controversial part last year, which was who has access to the data.
Yeah.
And, you know, where we were stumbling was that we were creating a database that met the district's needs to meet the ministry requirements for data, but not one that was helping teachers, you know, improve the teaching and learning with the information. So it sounds like we're creating a database now that has addressed the issue of actually helping teaching and learning.
Yeah.
Are we able to also use that to mine the data that is necessary, that the ministry requires from us, or are we doing that somewhere else?
Do you want, I can, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, and
We might-
we can dovetail together here. I believe as we move along, that will come, particularly with the new accountability reporting out process. So that may look a little bit different. The important thing for us right now is that it's in the hands of teachers, and they are beginning to ask the questions around, how can I use this to inform my instruction?
Yes.
And so I think we as you know, the keepers of the policy are going to be looking at how can we adjust to recognize a piece of what's happening in the schools, but also fulfill our duties. And I don't see it as going to be as an issue that we anticipated it might have been before.
I think I'd also say that the likes of sort of Tim and myself, if we're at these schools, Scott, you know, the conversations are what's important. For example, focus schools, I'll sit down with Diane, and her and I will talk about the data. We'll talk about, she's sharing, and we're problem solving, and we're sorting through this information together. And I think at this stage, that's sort of the preference that we have in terms of having access to this data. Physically, I suppose I could access it. I'm not. We prefer to sort of have these conversations and uncover things together and learn together that way.
They don't have a username or password. That was a joke. No. It's the most important conversation around student learning needs to occur in the classroom and the school. And that's what's happening. That's really truly what's happening now. People are looking at data and making decisions, even around student support services and how do they structure that. That's the real purpose of this tool, is to have those conversations. As far as a district, for me, looking at data, I want districts to look, or the board to look at data from a very much more holistic nature, because a one-time test may not be the perfect picture. Yeah, I hate using Johnny, so I'm gonna say, Justin shows up to school one day and didn't eat his breakfast, his mom was yelling at him because he was being a jerk, whatever, he had a really rotten day, and then does this test. Well, is that a fair reflection of his learning, just because he's, whatever, I'm just not gonna, I don't wanna. We want something much more authentic and much more holistic, which I believe your policy addresses, a wide variety of different assessments. So I'd be much more interested in the district and the board looking at how can we look holistically at how our kids are doing.
Awesome. It sounds like we're creating meaningful data.
Yeah,
Which is
I think so.
awesome. Great. Trustee Brennan had a question?
Trustee Brzee.
No, actually, you got an answer, so.
Okay, well, thanks to the committee for their hard work, and it sounds like things are moving. I guess from my point of view as a trustee, recognizing that the primary role of the board is to improve student achievement, I'm wondering when we'll have information that will assist us in governing more effectively. So assessment for governance, and that must include information about student achievement from the classroom outward. So I know we have limited opportunities for that now. We have the graduation rates, we have the much reviled foundation skills assessments, and some other, I guess, locally developed pieces of information. But when we have a regular flow of information and data to the board from the field through the superintendent's office that will tell us how well we're doing, where we need to allocate more resources, and how well we know that we're making a difference.
Big question. We're hoping that through the accountability and how we present our school goals and our reports and et cetera, which will be much more open, but by next spring, with the baseline data of this year, principals will be reporting to the assistant supes and the director of learning on how it's going. And so we will get that high level conversation about whether or not they're feeling improved, et cetera. As we, as individual schools do the reports, and we put that, our plan is that it will be transparent for people to see, there will be reflections in those reports around how we're doing. And then that'll be around how the individual schools are doing with their students and improvement and et cetera. By that time also, we should be able to do some comparisons as to a very high level of possibly some baseline data and things like that of where we're starting from.
So soon.
And I would say by this time next year, we will have the majority of the district moving in the direction we need to go.
And just to follow up on what the question the chair asked, new curriculum, is that going to be a confabulating piece of information, or is that going to get in the way because of the change that it's bringing about within the elementary system this year? And I understand that it's sort of, it's uneven this year, and the secondary system next year.
Well, Justin's excited about answering.
New curriculum is an amazing opportunity for us to really reflect on our assessment practices, what we do and how we know students learn.
So
It's a structural change, and it gives us that opportunity to also look at how we assess kids at the same time. So when we engage in those conversations, what I envision happening is as teachers change their practice and look at formative assessment, but also look how they even assess student learning, you're going to get a much more, as we develop common understandings and common language, you're going to find even our report cards are going to become much more consistent, much more reliable. Like an A there is an A there is an A, that kind of idea. It's going to come. I think we're at this sort of transition. It's going to be a step into chaos, don't get me wrong. But at the end of chaos, you're going to reorganize in a way that's much more rooted in good pedagogy, what it means. So it's going to come, it's just going to take some time. It's very exciting and completely scary, right? Been teaching almost 20 years. I have never seen a curriculum like that at all. In fact, the first time I saw it, I turned off my, I don't want to, no, don't recognize that. The more I've gotten into it, the more sense it makes. It's going to be good. It will not get in the way. It will enhance what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I agree that it'll enhance what we're already trying to do. I think where the rub might come, maybe initially, is we talk about assessment for learning, putting all of those really good pieces in the classroom with kids to move their learning forward. That's going to grow exponentially, and we're going to get amazingly good at that. And then to teach kids and assess kids in a way where their learning goes deeper, and we're celebrating things like inquiry-based learning, and then to stamp a letter grade on that or a percentage on that, that's where I think where the rub's going to be. So this curriculum is leading us in the way that, well, you're familiar, all the things that we're talking about, we're hoping that the assessment, evaluation, reporting is going to follow along with that. We won't know that right yet, but I probably predict that's where the rub's going to be. So we're hoping for a lot of latitude and a lot of independence and allowance for innovation when it comes to reporting as that comes down that line.
And do you think you have a lot of learning to do around curriculum, new curriculum and assessment? Our parents are going to be looking at something completely different. And we've already had those conversations around how do you train parents on this whole, like we have got a lot of work to do, but it is, I think in the end, much better for student learning.
Charlene? We would love to be educated in this.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm excited from where we sat a year ago.
Yeah.
Heard the presentation. So what I'm curious about is, how does the committee want to get there with parents?
Okay, that is an awesome question. And our committee right now, in my mind, is in a state of flux. Like we were so focused on a reading assessment that now the reading assessment, you've hired staff to do the reading, to get that functioning run. Like Marcy and I are out in the field getting this happening. And the committee kind of went, well, now, what do we do now? So it's true. Like we're kind of, math. But there are those conversations. One of the best things about doing reading is now if we jump into numeracy or we jump into writing, we have the experience of developing something previously. So we have a lot of capacity now. But we also have to broaden that conversation to assessment overall and how we change it. But how do you educate the parents? Oh, okay, we really need to keep that in mind as we're moving forward as well. So what's happening with the District Assessment Review Committee, we're going to look at what is our purpose. I know the policy says there's certain things, but we're really looking at now, how do we evolve? Now that we've kind of taken care of something and we were really focused, now where do we go with that? And I think that has to be one of the driving forces. How do we not only educate teachers, because we have to train teachers, but parents, even students. This is going to look different. Yeah?
If I could just maybe follow up a little bit with that. I guess the first piece is, and my question may not be you, whoever can answer it, I would love an answer. The positions that Marcy and Justin are in, are they continuing positions, or were they for 1 year? So that's something that from a parent perspective, we would look forward to keep going with. And also, I was just thinking, perhaps there's something that the committee can put together around the use of PLC time related to assessment,
Yep.
when it's used, that we can take that back and start having those conversations with parents, because I'm a believer in PLCs. I believe assessment and what the work is that the committee's doing. I'm having a hard time convincing everybody else that I'm right. So I need some help.
One of the things I can tell you, and this is all Laura's fault. When the coordinators, the district coordinators were put into place for this year, she forced us all together. I say it's all her fault, and it's actually a really good result. It really forced us to start looking or working together on common avenues. So we have Linda Baldwin, who is a inquiry and innovation coordinator, I&I they call it. We call it. She works with there's I&Is in almost every elementary school. It's a half day a week, one half day a week, and they're working with PLCs to help develop things. Well, of course, Marcy and I as assessment coordinators are working with Linda on how to get PLCs talking about data. Like, let's do an assessment, get some data, and start making decisions on how do we evolve our practice, how do we support students. So PLCs are actually a wonderful avenue for assessment conversations. It's coming. It's coming. PLCs are developing at the same time too, though. There's not a lot of, we need a lot of work in that area too.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I can just add something to put my name on this. For the assessment is that we're all kind of stuck in a waiting game, waiting for the ministry to tell us what assessment's going to look like with the new curriculum. They haven't released that information yet, and it's been sitting on the minister's desk since September. So we're all stuck with the same questions that you have. Everyone has them. What's it going to look like? What are the rules going to be around them? We have this new curriculum, but nobody's decided yet how we should assess the new curriculum. So there is a report that was done by a large provincial group, the advisory group on provincial assessment, that had sort of like 60 people on it. It was huge, from K all the way through, like it was like the K to 16, I think they call it, because it went all the way through to universities and colleges. And they made lots of recommendations, and they're waiting for the minister to
Thank you for that.
There's a working group on it right now. Teachers from across the province have been brought in by the BCTF to work with the ministry on developing what does assessment look like for this. So that is already happening. It has to. You can't look at a new curriculum and go, here's the old report card. It doesn't fit.
If I may respond, my question was more based specifically to us locally and what we're developing here as opposed to provincial.
we can't develop something locally until we know, are there going to be standardized exams? We don't know that yet, at the high school level. So we can't, it's really hard to develop something when you don't know what the parameters are that you're expected to work within.
That doesn't mean we shouldn't have the conversations
No,
still.
not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Being in front of the curve is awesome. Any other questions for our presenters?
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you
Yeah,
very
no
much, you
problem.
guys. I just wanted to say that I'm really, really excited about where we've come in the year. There was a lot of really good stuff happening, and then there was some uncertainty, and it just looks like you guys have really dug in and created some really positive stuff that's going on. The discussions about learning are amazing to hear.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean we're not gonna have bumps.
No.
It really doesn't, but one of the things I really value about this committee is we are so open and okay with people challenging each other. It is, like, we're gonna hit bumps. You will. When there's that many mixed nuts in one room, it's gonna happen. That's why I used the nuts, by the way. It was, thought that you could do the image. But we're so open and okay with challenging each other that we'll get through it. It'll be quite successful.
Well, it's exciting. And you had something to add?
Well, you can't beat me to the punch, but I'd just like to thank the committee and its work, and the schedule that you've created that is impressive, and thank you very much for the work.
Okay, we have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to 9.1. Trustee Solomon.
So I wanted to bring this issue up, just for a wee bit of awareness and kind of, attempt to ensure that the district is making effort, to get the word out about this specific issue. And, I attended a forum at at VIU, it was January 28th. It was a very good forum. It's, I think people have heard about the issue of fentanyl and being prevalent in terms of usage and the serious implications of its use, and it's within not just this province, and but you know, it's pretty much everywhere, and it's a serious issue. So this forum was put on by VIU. Dr. Hasselbeck was there, the police, counselors, public health, and it was a desperate situation that they're looking at. Because and they're making every effort to let people know how serious the issue is. And so I'm just going to give you a wee bit of information, and it isn't just fentanyl, but it's certainly one of the major issues. So in British Columbia, in the month of December, there was 62 drug overdose fatalities. And we're not talking, that's in BC, but we're not talking just the downtown east side of Vancouver, but we're talking throughout the entire province, and we're also talking about all the age range. It's not just the, heavy users that have been on, using for a long time. It's every socioeconomic grouping, it's every age grouping. So it's a huge range. And that was in 1 month, 62 people died. And in Nanaimo, there were 14 overdoses. Now, 4 of those people died, and that was in 1 month, in December. So we have a problem, and fentanyl has brought this to light. It's because it's so powerful. What they're saying is that it's 100 times as powerful as morphine, and so it's not just using fentanyl as such, but it's being laced with pretty much everything, and it's being cooked up in labs, and it's out on the streets, and people are using it, and they don't know what they're using, and that's the issue. And it can be one shot will kill somebody. So it's a very serious issue. Let's see. Most of the people overdosing on fentanyl are unaware that they're even taking fentanyl, since it can be mixed in with a number of other drugs. And of course, it's not just the low-income demographics that are being affected. It's, like I said, this was an effort to get the word out by a broad range of mental health professionals. And going through, it's interesting that the clinic at the university just started this year as well, so obviously they're trying to get the word out through that. It almost coincides with the clinic at Barsby. And so that's a good way of doing it, but I think we need to do everything we can. The police were there, there's a group that they want to get the word out, and if there is something that we can do in the district, especially with the high school kids, simply to make people aware, then I think that that's a valid and useful thing to do. So, that's all I want to say.
Thank you, Trustee Solomon, for bringing that to our attention. Clearly that is something that is an issue, and you see that on the news, and you quickly go on to what the next news story is, and you forget. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I guess my question to staff is, have we been proactive about this kind of thing? And if not, perhaps we should.
I can only speak to what's in the day-to-day curriculum, but the staff can certainly do some checks as to what may be going on out in our schools right now. Principals are pretty attuned to the things that are happening within the community, I was noticing that we've got a lot of social media pieces, guest speakers and et cetera in our schools right now, and also respect to others. Several things are happening out there, so it's a good question to ask where we're at with that,
Yeah.
and maybe I can get Mr. Saywell to ask the principals
Yeah.
via email. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for attending that conference, workshop and bringing that information to us. It is a public health issue, and I think we should have a public health alert within this district with regard to the presence of fentanyl and its imminent danger to the lives of our students. Because the word you get from the various communities where there have been deaths is, as you said, it's not the street crowd that's all dying. I mean, there was a case in Victoria of a young high school student, female, who died, and her mother was just traumatized, didn't know what was going on. It was probably the first time she used drugs. She made the unfortunate mistake of using fentanyl. And with street drugs, you don't know what you're getting. You know, they're laced with baby laxatives, with other drugs, you know, who knows. So I think that we should, and perhaps somebody could make a motion that we ask staff to establish a public health alert throughout the district with regard to the danger of substance.
I'll move that.
I can speak to it.
Do you want to speak to it before it gets moved?
Possibly.
Okay, let's do that first.
From staff, we deal with Dr. Hasselbeck on almost a weekly basis. And it's through them that we work on the health alerts and et cetera. So I would be relying on that we would be working with the health unit around any of those types of things, that we wouldn't do it on our own. So whatever motion that would entail would be also involving public health and Dr. Hasselbeck's recommendation.
Get the truth out.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how do we want to move that then, that we,
Well, I mean, maybe we don't need to
Yeah.
move something, maybe it's just that staff can work,
Staff, if they
staff's
do an undertaking
aware
to work
Yeah.
with public health.
public health, but if they feel that it's
And
necessary,
report back to
then.
the committee.
Absolutely.
Everybody's aware how serious it is, so
Yeah.
let's deal with it.
I'll just add, I mean, we have a community police officer in each of the high schools
Right.
that are attached, and
Sure.
obviously a tremendous resource with that individual working with the school. And it's simply to get the word out.
It's good information, thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Routley?
Well, I guess this would be through the chair to staff, just, if we could get a little bit of detail about how the word is getting out too. I think it would be good for us to know. I don't think we'd wanna stick our head in the sand and think that, the kids are not gonna use, but that education is around, this is a risk if you use, when you use, because a lot of our students do indeed use substances despite all efforts to the contrary, right? So part of my interest in knowing a lot about this area would be how it's, how it gets reported to you and how the information that's given. Thanks.
Can I just add
Yeah.
one other thing? One of the big pushes is to provide kits, and it's Novocaine. It's a little kit that they
Naloxone.
to give out to people that, because we're acknowledging that a lot of people do use drugs, illicit drugs, and we're not saying that's not going to happen, but if you're going to, then perhaps you should have this on hand because you may overdose and die. So, anyway, that's blunt, but that's the case.
First responders are being provided with that.
Absolutely, but they're also giving it out at like the university as well as through the health unit.
Sad reality.
So, I mean, I think to summarize the conversation is that, we work together with public health and et cetera to have a coordinated effort to make our students aware of the risks.
And the police.
Coordinated effort, yes.
Yeah.
Anything else to add to this? No? Any questions from question period? No questions? Dale handles questions now? No? Nope. Okay. Somebody want to move for a record adjournment, which is good because I'm a little jet lagged, so
Yeah.
Trustee Brzovic and Trustee Ray. Move to adjourn, no objections. All right, thank you everyone for a speedy meeting.